on this computer. Awesome. Yay. Okay, well, first of all, thank you so much for joining. I'm delighted that you made it on a Sunday afternoon. So thank you so much for your time. I would like to cover a couple of things with you today. Number one, my first goal is to provide some financial education. And then there's going to be a small part towards the end of this presentation where I can share with you a little bit more about what the business provides in case somebody is interested in a part-time opportunity, full-time, or being a referral agent, okay? And please feel free to stop me during the presentation if you have any questions. I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Leonor Gale, and I am actually a finance professional, 30 years or so in the business. However, all those 30 years I've been involved in working with high net worth individuals, people with a lot of money, people who inherited money, people who were worth over $1 million and above. And then more recently, I was involved with helping institutions. So different sides of the coin, but all in finance. Last year, I lost my job after 15 years at this company. I lost my job and I find myself wondering, well, what am I going to do with my life type of thing? So after a lot of introspection and a lot of just thinking about, what is it that I'm going to be called to do the rest of my living years on this earth? And I was happy that I was able to find my purpose. And my purpose, I kind of had known it all along, but just it was very, very transparent and clear to me at the time. And that was to serve people. So when I think back, I'm one of the older siblings in my family and in my generation. So a lot of times I would find myself helping people either fill out an application or be a translator or helping them with route buses when my grandma and my grandpa went to a different city. So anyway, throughout my career, I was like really in that servitude type of role. I didn't realize that though. So last year I realized that, okay, that is my purpose, to continue to serve others. Not only that, but actually to make an impact on somebody else's life. And by that, I mean, the Hispanic community in particular is very much lacking in financial education. Not a lot of us have the privilege of having a lot of money where we can pay a financial advisor $2,000 to $3,000 or $5,000 to provide an assessment for you, or to just pretty much tell you where you are financially or what you need to do. Last year, I kind of went through something like that myself. After I got laid off, somebody said, oh, you need to go see so-and-so from this company. They will be able to tell you what to do with your pension that you received and your savings. I'm like, oh, okay, great. Well, to my surprise, I was told I was not eligible for that service because I was not worth $1 million. So there you go. So I'm very happy that now I am able to work with families like you and I, people who don't have $1 million or more in their savings account, so that we can actually find ways to educate people on what to do with their money, how to save taxes, how to prepare for a future that's better than what we've had before. And that's what the impact that I'm looking to do with families, making sure that they're better prepared than how I was or our families were. And bottom line, to really break that cycle, every generation, we seem to always being the culture that's kind of behind, right? We're always trying to catch up to others to be where they are. And we wonder, how do they get there? Well, being financially savvy is how they get there. So that's one of the things that I take pleasure in, just knowing that I'm in a position right now where I can add a little bit of value to change that trajectory and to break that chain that's been, not a curse, but it's just been just something that we've been doing over and over again. So with that, last year I decided to join this company, and this company allows me to do just that, to work with families, to help them on an individual basis. But the best part is that I don't charge them anything. I can sit down with any one person, offer a financial analysis or provide guidance or talk about different products, and not have to have the person worry as to how they're going to pay me, because I don't charge anything to my clients. I get paid differently, and I'll show you in a minute. But the company that I work with right now is Transformation Financial. Let's see if I can, there we go. So as we watch this mini presentation, I would ask you to please consider these questions. Number one, do you know someone who should see, excuse me, who should hear this message? Number two, can this info help you or your family or your friends? Or are you intrigued in the business? I mentioned to you it's a very profitable business, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what that's all about. But in the meantime, please consider these questions as we go through the presentation. We have two missions. One of our missions is to help families from all walks of life build a better future. And that's what I was talking about earlier. You know, we don't worry about whether this person has, 500,000, 100,000, or a million. We talk to just about anyone, because everybody out there should be well informed as to what do they do with their money. You know, when they get paid, where's their money going? How are they saving it? How are they providing for their families, their children, for their spouses, if they were to pass. So there's a lot of things that we work with, and we provide education on. In talking to a lot of people in this business, I'm finding out that there's a lot of need. There's a lot of people who can't even afford $1,000 in an emergency, in case they have an emergency, and that was the case with the pandemic. A lot of people did not have full-time employment anymore. Their hours were cut, but at the same time, they didn't have an emergency fund. They didn't have that money saved up so that they can, just supplement those hours lost. So, only 30% of Americans can really afford $1,000 in an emergency, which is kind of sad, actually. And then the majority of Americans also, they're not ready for retirement. They feel very stressed when they talk about retirement, especially in our community. There's no one out there really that I know they will talk to just, the regular mom and pop family about their finances. I'm actually kind of like guilty of what happened with me too. When I started working, somebody in HR says, here's your 401k, you're going to be able to save money. I trusted that they were going to know exactly what to do with my money, but I didn't take any active interest in knowing exactly what it was that they were doing. And as a result, I just kind of let it sit there, kind of passive, not really earning the potential of interest and growth that it could have. So, and a lot of us go through that, but I didn't feel I had the knowledge to actually go through it and ask questions. It was too foreign to me. And now, mind you, I was in finance. So imagine what that looks like to somebody who doesn't know much about finances, right? So we found out that our niche market is families who cannot afford financial advisors and pay thousands of dollars to get their assessment completed. Over the years, we've all had a great responsibility about our finances and our future in particular. So for the longest time, our finances look like a three-legged stool. Those three legs being Social Security, pensions, and savings plans. However, as you can, I'm sure you've seen this with companies or friends, pensions have been eradicated. They're no longer around. In fact, I was very, very lucky where I used to work. I worked there many years ago, I don't know, about 30 years ago. And at that time, I had a pension. So the second time around, when I was hired there again, they grandfathered me in, and that was one of the reasons I got a small pension. But other employees don't get a pension. So what happens with that three-legged stool? Now it's only two-legged, right? We have the Social Security and personal savings. So you can't really rely on just those two to retire comfortably. So what happens is now we have a greater responsibility ourselves to do better with our personal savings and our investing. So this is the first time actually that I had heard about the rule of 72. Have either of you heard about the rule of 72? No? Well, don't be surprised. I hadn't neither. Now, mind you, I'm in finance, right? And I'm like, what is the rule of 72? Well, as you know, with any sports that you play, whether it be baseball, basketball, bowling, anything, there are rules, right? And if you want to win, you better know those rules. So the same thing with money. So the rule of 72 speaks about compound interest, and what it basically says in this example is that if you take 72 and you divide the interest that you gain on your investment, that's how many years it's going to take your money to double. So let's look at some examples. So if we begin with a person, maybe 29 years old, $10,000, earning 2%. Now, that's generous in this day and age because you go to the bank and the banks are not paying you a whole lot of money. CDs, regular savings accounts are giving you what, 1 point, not even one, it's like 0.05% in interest. So imagine how long it takes if you just have your money in a savings account, how long that's going to take for that money to double. So in this example, earning a 2% interest, that money doubles in 36 years and then again in another 36 years. By that time, I don't know how old we're going to be, but we're probably not going to have enough money to retire with that much. And then the same thing, if you have an investment with a higher interest rate, it's less years. So in this example, you have an investment earning 6%, only 12 years. 72 divided by 6 is 12. And then again, in another 12 years, it doubles and doubles and doubles. So you're much better off with a higher interest, obviously, than if you have low interest. The rule of 72, however, also kind of works against us. I mean, this is showing you when you earn money on your account. But imagine those people who were in the pandemic, who used their credit cards or their credit union to take out loans. Those loans were not cheap. Those loans on average maybe charge 29, 30%. So if you take the rule of 72 divided by 30, how much is that? What, 2 years, 3 years before you double your debt? In that case, it's your debt that's going to double. Because a lot of people say, oh yeah, I'm paying my credit card and I'm paying the minimum. Well, guess what? That minimum is not even enough to pay the interest that they charge you, right? So we've got to be careful with that too. So we also learn about how to save money. There are various ways that we can save money. One of them I mentioned is when you have a savings account or a CD or a money market or even a mutual fund. With those types of accounts, it's a very steady income that you generate on those accounts because the rate is fixed. And every year after year, you get the same interest unless you make changes in your investments. There's another way, and that's called the indexed method. Are you familiar with the stock market? What the stock market does? So in the stock market, you have ups and downs every single day, depending on what companies are doing, how investors are feeling, because it's very much an emotional market. The performance is up and down, up and down, up and down. So what happens is when you put money in an account and you have it in the stock market, that's a variable movement. So it's up and down every single day. You're like, oh my God, did I lose money? Or, am I going to gain money today? Well, we have products where you can invest your money. And when the stock market hits a high, for instance, this is an index high, the money gets locked in. Let's say in the next few days, months, or whatever, that rate goes down, your money stays there and continues to perform at that number, regardless of what the stock market does. The next time there's a high in the stock market, you get locked into that rate again. So over time, what you have is this ladder effect, which means that over time, because of compound interest and because of this index programs, your money gets locked and it makes money for you over time with no downside protection, which means that you don't lose that money. Okay. Reduce the impact of taxes. Oh my goodness, taxes, taxes, taxes. We pay taxes just about on everything. I know in Chicago, there was a time when they were charging taxes on soft drinks. Now they're charging taxes to even, just to buy a grocery bag. I mean, there's so many things that you pay taxes on. So there's different ways that we get taxed. Number one is taxable every single time. So that is when you get at the end of the year, a 1099 DIV or a 1099 INT, because That form is reporting the interest that you received either on savings account, checking account, money markets, mutual funds. So every single year you have to pay tax on that gain. Then we have what's tax deferred. Tax deferred means that, well, we're talking about like 401ks, 403bs, 457s, which is our police officers, and these are school teachers, and these are just people like you and I, and then traditional IRAs and some annuities and savings funds. So what happens in those programs is money goes in before tax, but this is this gray area here. However, when you retire, you get taxed on that money. Okay, so this is one of the things that I find it kind of sad and interesting too. I'll talk to somebody about their retirement and they're like, oh yeah, I have a 401k. Okay, well, how much money do you have? Close to $1 million. Great, you've done a great job. But do you know, sir, or ma'am, that when you retire, taxes are going to be higher than they are now, number one. Second, have you factored inflation? So if you take your $1 million and you take all of those things into consideration, you're going to end up with maybe $700,000. Is that enough for your retirement? Is that going to be enough to get you through to time of death? I mean, those are the kind of things that people don't realize. And of course, if I had $1 million in my 401k, I'd be jumping up and down. Yes, I'm ready for retirement, but not exactly. If you want to live comfortably, that is. And then there's the tax advantaged. This is where money's go in after you get paid. So you get a paycheck every so often, every 2 weeks or a month or whatever. Money comes into these programs such as an IRA, a Roth IRA in this case, or in the form of a cash accumulation in an insurance policy. This right here is very, very powerful. Oops, I clicked without wanting to click. Okay, so the cash accumulation is very powerful, and I'll explain to you how that works. But if you have, as I mentioned, your paycheck and you want to start a Roth IRA, you can start it with as little as $50 a month. There's limits though, $6,000 a year for an individual. And if somebody is over 55 or 50 years old rather, it's $7,000 a year. And I can go into this later as well. But this is the tax advantage. This is where we want most people to be. The power of choice. I don't know if you know of any other company, but sometimes companies will be in contract, if you will, with one or two companies that provide services. Well, sometimes that one or two company does not have the product that fits every individual need out there. And that's one of the things that I really like about what I'm doing and the company that I'm working with, that we have 150 companies to work with. This is just a small sampling of all of those companies. And the reason why that's so important is because if somebody, I'll give you an example. So I had a lady who is a resident here in Illinois, but she has a specific type of visa. So I had gone to one of these companies and they're like, oh, no, we can't approve this type of visa. Oh, okay, well, let me go to somebody else. And guess what? They were able to accept that type of visa and they were able to help this person. And there's so many other situations with health insurance or life insurance. If somebody doesn't apply with one, might be able to apply with another one, or maybe the rates are better with any one of these. So we do try to find the best possible solution for any one person. And all of these companies are very reputable. You've heard about a lot of these, I'm sure. Nationwide, it's on your side, the little jingle that we hear all the time. But these are very, very strong companies. And one of the other benefits that I have, I'm not claiming to be the expert on any one of these products by any means, but as a person that works with both Transamerica and with WFG, I have the ability to call any one of these companies and ask them for help. So for instance, Athene, if I'm working on an annuity for a client, I can call up any one of the reps and say, hey, can you help me with this illustration? Can you explain why this is this, or why this number is that? There's a lot of support. And if you have a client who is very knowledgeable or very technical, there's no problem with getting any one of these reps on the phone to work with you in front of the client and explain it in detail. And I've had a few of them like that already. So it's very comforting for me to know that I'm not doing this by myself, that there's this whole array of companies and people who are experts in what they do, so that I can actually go in front of a client and sound like I know what I'm doing. So how do we pursue financial independence? Well, I mentioned to you earlier that a lot of people, especially with a lot of money, they pay financial advisors a few $1,000s, if not more, to do a financial assessment for them. One of the things that I'm able to provide to any one of you here free of charge is a financial needs analysis. So I strongly encourage you to do one. And what this is just a foundation, right? It's a base so that you know where you are now and what is it that you need to do to get to where you want to be. And how do we do this? We do it by a series of questions. The way that I kind of compare this or explain this analysis is very similar to when you first go to the doctor to get a complete physical. The doctor's going to take out a pad and say, okay, so and so, what's your history of health? Here's your pressure and here's your heartbeat, and they'll take every kind of test possible to get a complete assessment of where you are health-wise. And then once that doctor sees where you are with your health, then they'll come back with some recommendations and say, ooh, your sugar is a little high, or your blood pressure is this, or you may need this kind of pill, or anyway, so they'll give you recommendations. Well, this is exactly kind of the same thing. So I go in using the following 6 steps to ask a lot of questions. And once I do the assessment, I have another meeting with the client saying, this is what you would like to consider. This is something that you want to do, yes or no. So the financial needs analysis is number 1, we talk about cash flow. You'll be surprised how many people don't know where their money goes. They get a good paycheck, they earn a good amount of money, but they're like, oh, what happened to my money? What did I do with it? I've actually sat down with clients who, after we go through the ins and outs, how much money comes in and how much money goes out, and they have some money left over. They're like, but I don't have that money left over. I don't have any money at the end of the month. But that's because they're not really accounting for that Starbucks that they buy every single day, or whatever it is that they're liking, and they're not really thinking that that's money that goes out of their pocket. So this kind of forces people to take a very close look as to how they're spending the money that comes in. The other part of this is debt management. I mentioned that with the pandemic, a lot of us went into debt. Why? Because we didn't have a full-time job anymore, lost our jobs, or had reduced hours. So the first thing that people do is, oh, my credit card, I can charge this to my credit card, or I can take out a loan to pay for my mortgage or whatever. So they end up with a lot of money being owed. And I mentioned some of these rates are not cheap. So we have strategies that I work with people on. Number 1, how to reduce their debt sooner, and how to actually get out of debt entirely. The other one is an emergency fund. Most people don't have an account set aside just for emergencies. And it's crucial that we do, because because of just don't know what's going to happen. 3 to 6 months of income or expenses is required to go into an emergency fund. The other thing is, I'm sure you've seen the GoFundMe accounts. Somebody passes and they're collecting money. And of course, there's a lot of very kind-hearted, generous people out there. And yeah, of course, people will actually collect the money that they're intending to collect. But what happens after they cover their funeral expense? How are they going to pay their mortgage? How are they going to pay for college for their kids, or just their living expenses, especially if the person who passed is somebody who was head of household? So it's really important to be prepared for those situations. And speaking of protection, the best way that I can explain this is when you're constructing a house, what is like the very first thing that you do when you have brand new construction? Does anybody know?
Laying down the foundation?
Exactly. That foundation has to be very solid for that house, whether it be a single story, double story, triple story, whatever, to be solid, to be able to sustain the top of that house. And in finance, that protection is insurance. If you have the proper protection insurance, you're going to be able to provide for your kids' college. You're going to be able to provide for your spouse, be able to pay your mortgage, your debts, and build wealth in the future. There's a way that I help people calculate how much protection they need based on their income. There's a method that we use based on their income, their debts, their mortgage, and also funeral expenses as well. Building wealth, again, this is something that we don't do enough. A lot of us are barely making it paycheck to paycheck. And to build wealth, there's so many programs out there that we can help people with. Earlier I mentioned a Roth IRA. I cannot tell you how much I'm just really encouraging the younger folks to get into a Roth type of an IRA. If you have earned income, there's no reason why somebody should not be going and opening up a Roth IRA. Why? Because it takes very little money, $50 a month, to be able to start building that wealth, so that when you retire, you at least have something that you can walk away with tax-free. Not only that, but there's a lot of other programs, annuities, mutual funds, my wealth went away, where people can actually plan for a better future. And also, once you have that wealth, how do you preserve that wealth? I have learned a lot in the last 6 months that I've been involved in this business. And one of the things that I want to share that I learned that was very much of a shock to me is, a lot of companies have these executives and they earn a lot of money, right? So you wonder, how do the rich stay rich and get richer? Well, that was my question. A few months ago, I took a seminar, and it was a gentleman who was an economics professor in New York. Now he's opening a firm here in Hoffman Estates. And the thing that he shared was, for those executives, like, people who are really high up in like a GE or a Ford or, those really big companies, how do they build their wealth and preserve their wealth? Well, every executive gets a compensation, obviously. Most of these companies have a 401k. So the executive will obviously put money into their 401k because the company will match whatever they contribute. So that's great. However, that's only a small piece of their compensation. The rest of their compensation, let's call it, 60% of their compensation, you'll never guess what they do with that. Any wild guesses? Nope. I was very surprised as well. They put a lot of that into insurance policies. And I'm like, huh, what? But the thing is, insurance policies, there are programs out there right now. They have so many different benefits. Accumulation of wealth is one of them, or I should say accumulation of cash. So imagine all that cash that they put into these programs. When they retire, they take that money out tax-free. They use that money for whatever they want. They can buy a house, a car, start a business, go on trips without having to pay taxes. But the beautiful thing is that that is available to each one of us. And that's why I get so excited when I work with someone, because I want to teach them that this is available to us too. We can make an impact. We can make a better life for ourselves, for our families, for our kids. And I thought that was like, oh my God, I just like found out like the biggest secret of the world type of thing. So I'm so glad that I'm able to share it with you. So up until now, I have been sharing with you what we are able to do to help our families. And that was one of our first passions. The second passion is to help people build strong, enduring businesses. This one, I will try to explain on the next slide. Here we go. The power of our platform. When I first started thinking about this, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not an entrepreneur. I've never been. I don't want to be my own boss. But then I started thinking about all the negative things that I had in my last job. Just to give you an example, I was a senior vice president for 15 years and pretty high up in the business position-wise or officer-wise. However, I had to ask permission to, this sounds crazy, but to even go have a meeting during my lunch hour, because my manager would not allow that. And I felt I was being caged, shackles, chained to my desk, whatever you want to call it. I had no freedom whatsoever. So when I thought about that, I'm like, you know what, I'm not going back to corporate. I'm not going to go back to a 9-to-5 job where somebody's telling me all the things that I need to do when I need to do them. I can do more than that and I can make a bigger impact than that. So that was one of the reasons to why I decided to join this platform. With this platform, we do own a business. This is like me having my own business. I do my own admin, my own marketing, my own everything, which is a little different than when you're in a corporation, right? Because there you have a structure, you just kind of go in, they tell you what the job description is, and you do that. But there's a tech department in the back, and there's human resources, and there's like all of these other departments. But here, you take ownership of that and you make it what it is for you. I mentioned the schedule flexibility. I love the fact that there's training programs. I mentioned that one of the things that I'm not is a subject matter expert on any one of these products, but that's great because I am not in this by myself. We have a saying that we're in this business for ourselves, but not by ourselves. And that's because we not only have the field training programs, we have people that we can reach out to, as I mentioned, all those companies, call them up and say, hey, I need help with this, or can you help me with that? So there's a lot of support. Uncapped potential. 3 years ago, actually now 4 years, I was told at my job that I was making too much money. And not only was I going to be put in a freeze, a salary freeze, but they took away my bonuses as well. And I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, there's no such thing here. You earn as much as you work for. And I'm not kidding, this business is very lucrative. The finance industry is one of the most lucrative industries out there. So there's a lot of money to be made. Energetic and positive work environment. We have a code of ethics. Our group has a code of ethics. There's no complaining. There's no negative Nellies. There's no, Debbie Downers, nothing like that. It's so nice to be able to wake up in the morning and get on a Zoom call and talk to all of these positive people. Yeah, we're like, just barely waking up, drinking our coffee, but the energy is there, that positivism is there. We're there to support each other, and that's beautiful. I love that. We have access to all the well-known products, as I mentioned earlier. And then mentoring, that's huge. I have heard of other companies, and I'm not going to name other companies, but when they go into their platforms or their structure, they kind of get thrown in and they're pretty much left out there to fend for themselves. There's no guidance, there's no mentorship. I had somebody in the family actually who was in one of those other companies, and he didn't last very long because, of course, he had no support. Hang on a second, I clicked something that I shouldn't have. But here we have access to a lot of the senior folks, and my computer is a little slow, or I'm too fast with my fingers. Give me 1 second. There we go. So the mentoring from the top, this January 5th through the 10th, Fuji and I were out in Orlando at a convention, and we were able to talk to all of the people who have made it in this business. They're right there talking to you, giving you tips on exactly how to do your business so that you can get to where they are. And I think that that's beautiful, because in a lot of places, somebody's really high up and you don't get access to those folks. So this is just a very small description of the compensation. This is an example showing how helping a family results in $2,200 commission paid to the field, with the commission based on an average life insurance policy of 40-year-old male who pays about $185 a month. So the way that this works is, when you first start off, obviously you have to have a license, because our field is regulated by the insurance, what's it called? The governor. There's a person in government who is, I forget the name right now, who is responsible for regulating this industry. So we have to have a license before we can even transact any type of business. So when you're a licensed person and you're a training associate, you have about, I don't know, 25% of the commission that you get on anything. As you continue to get trained and you start working with more families, then that commission goes up to 35 and to 45. When you get to a senior marketing director, you get up to 65. However, when you get to the marketing director, then you're like a manager in a company. You have a whole team working with you. And I'm not kidding you, this is the amount of money that you can earn on a monthly basis. I mean, I am actually, the person that I'm working with, who's my higher up, she is making at least $30,000 a month, and she's a marketing director as well. Takes a lot of effort. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a lot of effort and a lot of dedication, but this is your business. This is what you do, and you work hard enough for somebody else. So why not work hard for yourself, right? That's how I see it. The other thing that I wanted to mention about how we get compensated is not only do we get that upfront commission on that product that you're sold or that you put in front of a person, but every person that's in your team, you earn a little bit of what they make. So if they win, you win. Not only that, but every year you get trails on everything that you have done. The other beautiful thing is if somebody has been in this, let's just say, I don't know, 10 years, um, and they decide to, well, let's just say they pass. Well, there's a beneficiary that for as long as those policies are enforced, they can continue to get those trails from the parent or the person who was earning those initially. I thought that was really, really, really good because the earnings don't stop with the person passing. They get passed on to the family or whomever the beneficiary is. And I've never seen this before in another company. So I thought that was really, really, really good to have here as part of the compensation. I'm not going to touch it because I don't know when the next slide is going to come in. Come on. Okay. Oh, I just did that. Okay. Doesn't want to go. Okay. So that was the last slide of the business. And I like to explain this slide a lot because it's kind of heartwarming. Well, first of all, this is the team. Here's the lady that is my lineup. She's not my manager or anything like that, but she's the one that supports me on a daily basis, asking if there's anything I need, how am I doing? I mean, there's a lot of support, but it's a very cohesive team. This gentleman here is the CEO of our company, and he actually is from Chicago. He started about 20 years ago. As you can imagine, he's now a multimillionaire. But a lot of people, when they're millionaires, it's been my experience that they do a lot of things for themselves, mansion and boats and planes and jets and blah, 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 and all material stuff. This gentleman, with all the millions that he's earned, he started an All for One Foundation. And what this foundation does is they provide, or he actually creates prosperity centers, schools, clinics, anything to do with kids to help them survive, because these are kids like this little kid right here who became an orphan because his parents died of Ebola. So in 23, 24 countries, he's able to open up prosperity centers. And he's got a really huge, huge heart. He has his own family. This is Kim, his wife, and his two biological children. However, a few years ago, he adopted David. Well, every year, this gentleman also puts out, talk about vision boards and goals. OMG, this gentleman takes hours to create his goals for the entire year. And then he goes and shares them with us so that we can kind of see what he's doing. Well, he shared his goals, I want to say the last week of December. And he said, by the middle of January, I'm going to be adopting 4 more kids. And I'm like, oh my God, how sweet. So 4 more kids are going to be adopted by this very kind-hearted gentleman. And you talk to him and he's like, it's just like any other person, very down to earth, very just pleasant. People who get to the SMD level get to work with him directly. He'll call up Blanca in this case and say, hey, how's it going with this? How's it going with that? When are you going to do that? I mean, it's always somebody who's challenging you and there for you basically, and able to answer any kind of question. Because the other thing that happens in this business is you may come across clients that are very sophisticated, and if you don't feel like you have the knowledge or the expertise, then you call in the big guns, such as Mr. Levitan or someone who's higher up, and I think that's beautiful. So the next steps, I ask people to, 1, take advantage of a complimentary financial analysis. I'll be more than happy to sit with you and complete one. Please complete the questionnaire that I put in the chat, and I'll be able to address those needs. There's a few things on there that you may want to learn more about. And then there's this other option here. There's a few people that I know, in fact, 2 of them are my kids, who have their full-time jobs. they don't want to leave their full-time jobs. Why? Because there's a security in knowing that they have a stream of income every 2 weeks or every month or however they get paid. However, this is another stream of income. People don't need to leave their full-time jobs to go into this, study for the exam, get licensed, and start making money on the side as a referral agent. Um, I have a couple of very dear people who I'm not going to name at this point, but they're going to become referral agents. My son is one of them. Once he passes the exam, he's going to be sending more police officers my way. In fact, I already am working with one of them. And whatever I help this person with, if I get a commission from that, then I will be able to share some of those profits with him not doing anything except referring that person to me. So, like, that's not fair. No, kidding. But anyway, so that's one way that people can get involved. The other way is doing what I did. I said, this is my life's purpose. This is my last full-time professional career, and I'm going to make it count. So I went all in back in July. Very happy that I did. Now my honey's part of this. In case you didn't know, my honey just joined. He's part of my team. And we're always looking for people who are driven, kind-hearted, who want to do the right thing for others, and who are there to make an impact, and obviously to make some money as well. So that's pretty much what I have for you. And that's it. Thank you for attending.